All right, you're live.
Okay. All right, great. The meeting of the Board of Port Wardens on Tuesday, November 26th at 2024 will be called at 7:01 p.m. In attendance, we have Harold Siegel and Scott Anderson and Jonathan McCobb, the other Port Wardens. We also have Carrie Berger, the city attorney, Brian Adams, and Madeline assisting. Um, the in attendance, we have a quorum. We have four. Mr. Lerner's not joining this evening. So let's go ahead and move to the next section. It's going to be a slight alteration. We have last minute agenda requests that we need to approve.
I'd like to,
If
I'd like to make a motion
added,
for that resolution.
what? I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, if added to the agenda, Alderman Arnett is going to speak on the purpose of the resolution once we hit basically this next section of the administrative, because we still need to vote once this is approved, if it's approved, on the actual agenda itself. But the portion of the agenda, the rules of procedure don't outline what's expected of the Port Wardens when reviewing legislation, but generally speaking, the Port Wardens can support, recommend favorable to the resolution. We basically have some recommendation amendments to the resolution, and whether we support or not and recommend favorably or take no action, it's all sort of just part of the discussion. So I'd like to ask for a motion to alter the agenda to add.
I'll make a motion to add Mr. Arnett's testimony.
Okay, to the administrative.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Can you just state, I noticed Kimberly's not here, but can you state what you're adding to the agenda? So the resolution number, Alderman Arnett, please correct me if I'm wrong because I'm doing this from memory, but I believe it's R4624.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so just make sure so that the record's clear that that is what you guys are amending to add to the agenda and adding to the approval of the agenda portion.
Okay, Scott, can you repeat that?
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to make a motion to approve the R4624 resolution for Mr. Arnett to give testimony.
Adding to the agenda. Okay. Can a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. All right, all in favor, please state aye or yes.
Discussion.
Yes.
Point of order. Can we have discussion before we vote?
Yes.
Yes, you can have discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if anyone's seen this resolution or is this
I have, and
Yeah,
I've watched the associated videos as well.
okay.
Have
Anyone else seen it or?
I've seen some of the legislation, not a lot of it, but understand what it's about.
Okay.
No idea.
Okay, me neither. Okay, thank you.
Well, I think that's part of the issue is he's going to tell us, and we'll be able to ask some questions of him.
I think it's really in the discussion phase and sort of the he wants to just start building a grouping of opinions and finding out what's, I believe so, but we'll find out.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. So if that's the case, let's get back to the motion at hand. All those in favor, please state aye or yes.
Can you just clarify what in favor of what?
The motion
to amend the agenda?
To amend the agenda.
To include
the comments from Alderman Arnett in regards to I don't have it fully written out, but the
task force resolution. We'll just
okay, the task force resolution. Thank you.
And then now you're going to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Yes. Okay. So let's go ahead, as she said, and move to approve the motion as I need a motion for that.
The motion to approve the agenda as read.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Anderson, and a second by Mr. Siegel. All those in favor of approving the agenda as amended? Aye. Yes. All right. That's unanimous. Motion passes. All right. So let's go ahead before we're going administrative, but let's turn the floor over to Alderman Arnett. And
wow, thank you. I didn't expect to be heard so soon. Yeah, so I'm going to try to be very brief because I know this is a surprise. I'm disappointed. I had asked that each of you be sent by email the resolution. And so we'll have to try to make this as understandable as possible, given that some of you don't really have it in front of you. The background is that houseboats appeared in 2 marinas in the city waters a while ago, over a year ago. They were being used as short-term rentals, and they were given citations by the harbor master because they were violating short-term rental rules. Ms. Berger can probably tell you more about the litigation that went to court and those sorts of things. The mayor, in response to requests from a handful of marinas, mostly in the WME, drafted an ordinance to change Title 15 to allow houseboats in more marinas. Currently, houseboats characterized as house barges in Title 15 are allowed in any marina with more than 50 slips. And in that legislation, the number of marinas over 50 slips, 2% of those can be houseboats, house barges. House barges also include the field dock at Annapolis Landing, and they include the barge down at the end of the city dock for watermark tours. The mayor, after a very brief meeting with Alderwoman Finlayson and I, and 3 of the marina owners, the city attorney, and an attorney for the houseboat people, withdrew his legislation, and it's in the process of being redrafted. The reason for the task force is twofold. One, to collect data, research data. I found that we don't really know for sure how many slips there are in Annapolis. We don't know slips by number of marinas. We don't know how many private slips are in the city. There's a whole host of things that are unknown to us. We also, the vendor, which is Flow Homes, proposes to not have these licensed as houseboats, but chartered as Coast Guard vessels, thereby thinking that they can get around the short-term rental requirements and the harbor master inspecting these boats. Concerns. There are a number of concerns, but I'll just hit some of them briefly. Every houseboat that goes into a slip is a recreational boat that can't be in a slip. Further, to the extent that houseboats are larger than normal slips, they'll do the same thing that catamarans are doing. They'll need to take up 2 slips, or at least part of 2 slips. There's also concern. The company, Flow Homes, says that they can generate $80,000 a year by using these houseboats as rentals, and they're also willing to do some profit sharing arrangements with marinas to use that. So there are a whole host of other things that we need to know about, like what does the Coast Guard actually regulate? Can they regulate on a regular basis the houseboats? Will they do annual life safety inspections like we do all other rental properties in the city? And these are outlined in the task force. There's a number of whereases, and it calls for a comprehensive review of municipal laws, ordinance, staffing, permitting, and regulations pertaining to houseboats, house barges, liveaboards, that's a ticklish subject, bed and breakfast charters, and charter boats. And it calls for a committee of 15, could be more people, to represent the industry, recreational boating, commercial boating, waterside community, at-large city residents, the port warden chair or their designee, maritime advisory chair or designee, and the creek conservation. There are environmental concerns about houseboats that are you're not being charged with. And there's a laundry list of things that data that the task force is to generate. But the primary reason is to have a body that is comprised of interested parties evaluate houseboats. We're told that, like, for example, Newport does not allow houseboats. There's many marinas, Safe Harbor, that don't allow houseboats. On the other hand, I learned from the Harbor Master's office, the District of Columbia does allow houseboats and seemingly has a way to keep them there. So the task force is in anticipation of the legislation and trying to get ahead of it. And the reason for that is our term, it will be coming to an end about this time next year. So if we're going to do legislation and we're going to do research, we really need to get started now. So I hope I haven't been too choppy or too brief, but that's the essence of what we're calling for.
I do have a question, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
So, you mentioned commercial being watermark, and is there a delineation between commercial and non-commercial use of a houseboat?
Well, we
We
don't know. So, for example, I had my three brothers in town, went up to Cantlers, and I was going up Mill Creek, and lo and behold, in a private backyard, here was one of these flow home houseboats. And it's really kind of an unknown thing. We looked at this back in 2008. I was on the council then, and that was when there were two houseboats that were parked next to a chart house, and they were attempting to sell them to people to use in Annapolis waters. And that created quite a stir. And that's when we drafted the current legislation that is in the code. I do want to take a second. The liveaboards are very concerned about this. The mayor's initial ordinance, which was withdrawn, talked about liveaboards. I think nobody is really interested in, there's somewhere around 50 liveaboards in all the marinas. They're part of the funkiness of the heritage in Annapolis. I don't think anybody wants to touch them. But that really goes to your question of how do we designate these things? Liveaboards are not commercial operations. They're living on their boat. So a very good question, and one we don't really have an answer for.
Yeah, thank you.
This has gone to the Rules and City Government Committee on the City Council. That committee is taking it up again on December 6th. It has gone to the Economic Matters Committee and the Environmental Matters Committee. Both of those committees recommended favorably, although they shortened the term for the task force to get their job done from a year to 6 months. That's probably a pretty practical amendment because we need to get the data in order to get anything passed before the end of the year. After that, no new legislation is typically introduced after June, particularly if it has to go to adjudicative bodies, the Planning Commission or you or any of the other bodies that would have to do with it. The reason I was very concerned about bringing it to you is I get pressure all the time from people that want to change their harbor line, not people, but condominiums and so forth. And I can sort of see dominoes falling where if we're reducing the number of slips and we're reducing even more the number of slips available to recreational boaters, I think there's going to be a push to expand marinas. And the only way they can expand is to change their harbor line. And obviously that's under your purview as well. And certainly, and I've been working with the harbor master on this, has a real concern about impact on navigation lanes and things like that. So um, I, I tried to be brief. I will answer your questions.
Are there any specific next steps you want from us at this point? Do you want one of us at the task force meeting? Like, what exactly? I mean, I'm glad you're making us aware of it, and I'll pass around the email that links to all the other resources for this topic. But is there anything in particular?
Yes. So there's two things. One, we're hoping to get this on the agenda for the December 9th City Council meeting for second reader, or in other words, final vote. So hearing from you, your thoughts either now or if you want to write something up. But specifically, Mr. Shapiro, we're asking you or you're assigned to be on the task force. So we think
Yeah,
very
I would.
germane to the business of the Port Wardens.
Okay.
And so that's the very specific ask.
Okay. Yeah. I'd be more than willing to do that. I'll reach out and get some of the dates related. Do you want more than one of us on there?
That the mayor will accept recommendations. The Port Wardens are specifically on there, as is the Maritime Advisory Board.
Okay.
It'll be staffed jointly by the harbor master and planning and zoning. And the next task, if it's passed, is to start soliciting people. But clearly, all of these questions about commercial boating and chartering, I didn't realize the city had a definite set of boats that are chartering in our water. I know we have some fishing boats. We have that party boat that people pedal and so on. But I think we need to know, and you have obviously two people on your board or captains and know about chartering. So, and we don't really know what the Coast Guard, I think the Coast Guard basically would certify the construction of the houseboat, but I don't think they have any function where they would come in and annually inspect and make sure these houseboats are properly maintained. I think there's some real concerns. A lot of these houseboats just have a small outboard motor. They're not really mobile. Flow Homes has a video that they show where there's a push boat that is actually pushing their Flow Home houseboat into the slip, which is probably a good idea. I mean, and their concept is these guys won't leave the slip, which, I mean, my paradigm is a recreational boat has to have water, so one way or another. A home does not have to have water. I know there are waterfront communities. I know Sausalito used to have a lot of houseboats and they outlawed them. Newport doesn't allow them at all. There's various communities. Ocean City recently banned houseboats because they became party boats and it was occupying their police force full time. So there's a lot of things to consider. I think this is a very serious change. And frankly, for me, I'll just give you my personal opinion. I think it's a challenge to the very purpose of having the maritime zones. I mean, it was one of the things that we didn't want to do is have non-maritime things like restaurants, like condominiums, take up all the waterfront and drive recreational boat, and those that service them, the marinas and the maritime industry, drive them out. So I think there's some bigger philosophical concerns, and your body does deal with these day in and day out, as you're going to do as soon as I shut up and get on with the rest of your agenda. And so I think you have a lot of value added.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. I'd be willing I'd be happy to help with the task force. And if there's another, we might be able to have some more involved, but I'll reach out in the next couple of days and we'll come up with the timing. Okay.
Yeah, I think there might be the need for some subgroups to focus in particular areas, and that's where more Port Warden people could really be valuable in filling those out.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. All right. Thank you very much for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Okay.
Thanks,
All
Ross.
right.
Thank you, Ross.
Yep.
Thank you.
Quite welcome.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from October 22nd.
Hold on.
Yeah.
You guys have to take some sort of action with this resolution. Remember how you guys can sort of recommend it favorably. You can recommend favorably with proposed amendments or recommendations, similar to how Alderman Arnett said that one of the recommendations that came out of, I believe, one of the committees was to shorten the time frame, or you can take no action.
I hear what you're saying. I think we need a little bit of time, and that's the point of the task force, is to figure out.
No. So this resolution is creating the task force. So all you're
Okay.
talking about is what you're deciding is whether or not you're supportive of the passage of this resolution that would create this task force. It's and some of the criteria that's outlined within it, like the time frame that they have to conduct the study and things like that. It's not about what would be presented to the task force for study, if that makes sense. It's just looking at the resolution and whether or not
it does.
you guys
I didn't realize that they needed our vote to actually form.
Do we have to make a vote either way?
What?
So and this is what I meant in the email that I sent, where the rules are not very clear on what the port warden's responsibilities are when it comes to reviewing legislation. And so, I think you guys can opine on things, but whether or not it carries weight with the council goes as far as whether or not the council adds weight to it, if that makes sense. So, for example, with this particular piece of legislation, the Maritime Advisory Board had they drafted something that they submitted, and it's something that you guys can use sort of as a template, where they just put that they marked off that they had a favorable recommendation without any amendments. And then it just goes into, they heard testimony from 3 members of the public that they kind of deliberated and made comments about the purpose of the resolution and then what their vote was. So something along those lines is what I would recommend that you guys do and submit to the legislative and policy analyst, which is something that can kind of be figured out offline, how that's actually submitted. But I would recommend that you guys have that conversation about the resolution itself, whether or not you guys are in support of the passage of that resolution, and make that determination and take that vote.
Okay.
Because Alderman Arnett said that his preference, now I don't know what's going to happen in rules and city government on December 6th, but the hope is to have this for second reader at the December 9th council meeting. So his hope is that this report that you guys, or this decision that you guys would make, and whether or not you are supportive of the resolution, would be determined and voted on before December 6th.
And the resolution is merely to participate with the task force.
It's not even to
timeline related.
It's not even to participate with the task force. It is just the task force and the creation of the task force. So yes, I mean, there is implied, and there's, I think, actually explicit participation from at least one member of the port warden on the task force. So let's say, for example, you guys would let's pretend here, hypothetically, instead of having one member of the port wardens on the task force, you guys would want 2 members of the port wardens on the task force. You can make a favorable recommendation with an amendment that at least 2 members of the port wardens be on the task force. Things like that are just kind of like the composition and the actual creation of the task force itself that's contained within that resolution that's been presented to you guys is what you're talking about now and deciding on. And then once you get time kind of to the specifics and the nitty gritty of it, that's presuming the task force that resolution gets passed, and then that will actually create the task force itself and form the task force where the mayor will be making those appointments.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's discuss, I guess, briefly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I have enough information to really.
Yeah.
I haven't even read the resolution.
Well, I think we're creating the resolution, I believe, and again, Carrie, correct me, is just merely to approve the concept of the task force and the timeline related to the task force, and we can add some caveats to it, like we agree to have a port warden, and if we want to have 2 port wardens on it, we would recommend that, or something to that effect. I mean, we're not approving the actual.
Yeah, it implies it though.
Yeah,
you think it implies that we're for it? I mean, I don't know.
I think we're just approving the concept of the task force coming to fruition. Am I correct?
We're sort of assuming that without having read it, right?
I have a question. Ross, when was the last time you voted on any issue without having actually read the amendment?
Harold, never.
Okay.
No, I'm being honest. This is a staff snafu. It was meant to be sent to you a week ago. It was sent to Chris Jakubiak and Consoli, and it never got to you. And I asked again today that it be emailed to each of you personally. Does not sound like that happened. But no, look, this is a snafu. I don't, but I will say that Carrie, Ms. Berger is correct. You're considering whether or not we should have a fact-finding task force. It does directly include you because you're thought to be needed as members of the task force. But we need to. There's a lot of information we need to get about our city waters, and then about the way other people around the country are handling or not handling houseboats. So that's the primary function. It's a fact gathering and research body. It is not doing the legislation. It's not responding to anything that has been submitted by the mayor as yet. It's in anticipation of that, and it's gathering the things we need to know before we pass on legislation.
We get it if we vote. We all vote yes. What would happen if we vote? We all vote no. What happens?
So I'll answer that. So I don't put Alderman Arnett in that weird spot of, if you guys vote no, it doesn't really have an effect. I mean, the council, of course, is going to take that into consideration and ultimately making their decision. But voting yes or voting something with a favorable recommendation, or voting something with an unfavorable recommendation, or taking no action is not going to have an effect on the legislation, other than it will be taken into consideration by individual council members when they come to vote on the resolution.
But we can be favorable to be part of the task. I mean, the task force hasn't officially been formed, correct?
Well, I think it's our duty to support the investigation of legislation that might happen, right?
Right. And again, we're not supporting the legislation. We're merely supporting the concept of the task force being formed, and that we'd like, and that, we do feel like we have a role within that.
So
Yeah.
to be clear, the legislation is a resolution that is creating this task force. So when you say we're not supporting the legislation here is what you're deciding whether or not you are supporting the creation of the task force. There has not been any legislation that is ready that addresses houseboats. The only legislation that you guys are considering is this legislation that would create a task force to indulge in these studies and make informed decisions as to what legislation in the future needs to be introduced.
That's what
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to create the task force and to support the 24. What's the task force name? Sorry.
I think it's, what is earlier, R4624.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve that, support it, or approve the legislation or the task force. I'm sorry. Anyone? Hello?
Can I get a second?
No second.
I'm sorry, what, John?
I haven't heard a second.
I can second, correct?
Yes,
Carrie?
you can second motions.
Okay, I'm going to second that.
I'd like to know if, in terms of discussion, can we do it a little differently? Instead of supporting an amendment or resolution that we know nothing about, can we just make a motion in favor of a task force to discuss the houseboat issue and leave it at that, and not actually use the number, because we haven't read what the number is. So we just have to say, hey, we support having a task force to discuss the houseboat issue. Just leave it at that.
I like that idea.
Okay.
Okay.
Carrie.
So
If you withdraw your
Technically
amendment,
speaking-
if you withdraw your motion, we can then.
Right, so
Use this
the
motion.
motion has been moved, it has been seconded, so now you have to vote on that emotion which was initially proposed, which is to recommend R 4624 favorably, or make a favorable recommendation. If it is the will of the Port Wardens to do what Harold just indicated, then you have to vote down that first motion, and then there has to be another motion that is proposed that states what Harold just stated. So you have to vote on the initial motion, which is to make a favorable recommendation for R 4624.
Okay, let's vote on that first motion. All right, which is I at this point I can't recite it, but you know, to accept the resolution for R 4624 without any of the amendments that Harold had discussed quite yet. So can we get all those in favor, please say yes. Even those that presented it. All right, all those opposed, please say no.
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 Okay, no. All right, that motion has failed. So let's go ahead and move to, are there any other motions, Harold?
I'd like to make a motion that, how do I say this, Ross? So that we are in favor of a task force to discuss the issue of houseboats.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right, can I get a second? All right.
Second.
I got second, actually, Mr. Anderson, sorry, Scott, you were slightly.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor of the motion to support the task force for the R 4624?
No.
No.
It doesn't include, it's just his motion was in favor of a task force to
In favor
discuss
of the
the
task force.
houseboats.
Okay, all right. All those in favor of the motion for the task force, please say aye or yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Oh, no. All right. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. The motion passes.
I profoundly apologize to you. I only became aware today that you didn't get it, and I think I thank you for considering it as you have. So thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
All right. Let's
Thanks,
get,
Ross.
thank you very much, Russ. All right, let's get back on track. So let's move to, what was that? Someone say anything?
I call.
All right. So administrative agenda, let's do the approval for the minutes from the October 22nd, 2024 meeting. All those in favor, please state aye or yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to request a motion to approve the meeting.
Motion to approve.
All right, great. Jonathan, thank you. Can I get a second? All right, Scott, thank you very much. Mr. Anderson, all those in favor to approve the meeting minutes from October 22nd, please state aye or yes.
Thank you.
Aye, all right, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Let's move to the next item, which is findings of fact. We're going to go one by one. There's two for the evening. The first one is findings of fact report 2024-0017, Bradley Walker, 2nd Avenue. It's construct 62-foot linear foot stone reinforcement over top existing bulkhead and replace 56 linear feet of bulkhead, 18-inch channel word. Is there a motion to approve the written findings of fact? And is there a second? Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cobb. Can I get a second? All right, Mr. Anderson, thank you very much. All those in favor of the motion to approve the written findings of fact report 2024-00017, Bradley Walker, 2nd Avenue, please say aye or yes.
Aye.
Aye. Harold, I think that was an aye, right? All right, so that was unanimous. Thank you very much. Motion passes. All right, findings of fact for application port 2024-00019, City of Annapolis, 6th Street Park, and it's to construct a 6x6 ramp and a 5x19 ramp, construct a 5x7 platform and two 5x6s and a floating pier 10x10 with aluminum gangway. Is there a motion to approve the written findings of fact? Can I get a motion? All right, Mr. McCobb, thank you very much. Can I get a second? All right, Mr. Anderson, thank you very much. All those in favor of the motion to approve the written findings of fact report 2024-00019, City of Annapolis, 6th Street Park, please say aye or yes.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Fantastic. Motion passes. All right. No old business. We're going to go on to new business. Despite the length of this new business, I think it's actually pretty good because it looks like a whole bunch of neighbors are working really well together, which makes this a lot more enjoyable of a task. So the three are semi-related. I'm not going to clump them together, but we're going to hear them out in full and separate. So the next item on the agenda is port 2024-00020, Dick Franyo, 29.5 Eastern Avenue. And it's to remove existing pier and piles, install a 6x40 pier and a 12x16 platform, and reinstall a 14x14 boat lift. I'm going to wait for Amanda to bring in, or Madeline, sorry, to bring in all of those that are going to be testify to this. Anyone planning to testify, please raise your right hand. All right, and we're going to swear you in. You do solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give to the Port Wardens is the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. As a preliminary matter, the board will accept the record, the record, the application packet, and the staff report, and any public comments. But would the city staff to the board, Mr. Adams, like to present any additional information?
No, Chair, I think it's pretty straightforward, and we did not receive any written testimony, and there's no one here for public testimony against the project.
All right, fantastic. All right, so applicant and or consultant for the applicant, if we can, who is going to be presenting?
That would be me.
All right,
me.
Mrs. Norris. All right, great.
Yes.
Can you just briefly, and we've seen you before, we know you, but can you really describe your qualifications that are relevant to this application?
Yeah, so I'm a permit coordinator and owner of RKN Marine Permits and Services, and I represent Mr. Franyo, who resides at 29.5 Eastern Avenue.
Okay.
And I submitted the Port Warden applications and the applications to Maryland Department of the Environment.
Okay. All right, fantastic. I guess, can you just walk us through that right now?
Yes. So the certified letters were mailed November 14th. The signs were posted November 13th. We received letters of no objection from Mr. Eckel at 31 Eastern Avenue and Mr. Freitag at 27.5 Eastern Avenue. The proposed construction is to remove the existing pier and piles, to install a 6-foot by 40-foot pier and a 12-foot by 16-foot platform, to install 2 lift piles and reinstall the original 14-foot by 14-foot boat lift. So the difference is the pier is being widened. It's currently 5.5 feet to 6 feet wide. And the platform will be widened from what's currently about 154 square feet. It'll be increased to 192 square feet.
Okay. All right. Thank you. There's no public testimony, I believe. There's no rebuttal, applicant or appellant, which is great. I really don't have any questions. It looks like it's not a replacement in kind exactly, but it's almost, and from what I see, it's well within the setbacks, and it looks good to me. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the fellow port wardens if they have any questions.
No questions.
Okay. No, none at all. No other port warden questions. All right. I guess they've all been asked. So I declare the public hearing on port 2024-00020, Dick Franyo, 29.5 Eastern Avenue. So I guess deliberations, everything, I mean, it's well within the harbor line by quite a bit. It's well within the setbacks with some spare, and considering it's a lift itself, so there's a defined beam that's at play. It looks like it's perfectly spaced in the lot. So as far as you know, the elements we all have to deal with, 151880, 18100. You know, the proposed structure is approved by the city planning and zoning. It looks like it's of proper quality and build material. So at this point, I guess let's go ahead and entertain a motion to approve or deny the application in Port 2024-00020, Dick Franyu, 20.5 Eastern Avenue. Can I get a motion for that?
Motion to approve.
All right, thank you, Mr. McCobb. Can I get a second? All right, Mr. Siegel, thank you. All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve Port 2024-0020, Dick Franyu, 20.5 Eastern Avenue, please state aye or yes.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, the motion passes. Thank you very much. I guess, Mrs. Norris, I suspect you're staying on this based on the diagrams?
Yes, I am.
Okay, all right, let me go ahead and open up the next one. Just for my sake, because I like to look at the actual diagrams while we're doing this. The next one is going to be Port 2024-00021, Brendan Keating, 23 Eastern Avenue, and it's to remove platform, finger pier, pilings, install 6x6 pier extension, and a 14x14 platform, 3x10 finger pier, and install 10 by 12 and a quarter boat lift, install one double. And so can I get all those that are anyone planning to testify, please raise your right hand. I guess we don't need to re-swear if it's just going to be Mrs. Norris, correct? All right. So let's go ahead and, as a preliminary matter, the board will accept the record and application packet and the staff report. Any public comments? I know we had some good written ones, all positive. Is there anyone else from the public here, Mr. Adams?
No, we have no public testimony, and I just want to mention that you know, this application as well as the next one, they do encroach into the lateral line setback, but they do have letters of no objection from each.
Yeah, no, I noticed that. And I think that's awesome. And I love when neighbors work together. Not that that matters what I love, but I think that's fantastic when that happens. All right. And so we can probably take that into consideration to the next one, but let's go ahead and just go through the appropriate motions. So if you, I guess, if we can have the consultant, Mrs. Norris, if you can just present the application.
Okay, again, Renee Norris, permit coordinator and owner of RKN Marine Permits and Services. I represent Brendan Keating, who resides at 23 Eastern Avenue. I submitted the building permit applications to the City of Annapolis and Maryland Department of the Environment. The certified letters were mailed November 14th. The signs were posted November 13th. And we received a letter of no objection from Brian Sweeney at 25.5 Eastern Avenue. So the proposed construction is to remove the existing platform, finger pier, and pilings, to add a 6-foot by 6-foot pier extension, install a 14-foot by 14-foot platform and 3-foot by 10-foot finger pier, to install one 10-foot by 12.25-foot boat lift, and install one double mini mag 2800 personal watercraft lift. So the difference is the pier will be extended by 6 feet. The platform will actually be reduced from what is currently 200 square feet down to 196 square feet. And the finger pier and platform will be moved closer to the west side or the Sweeney side to allow room for the double mini mag 2800 personal watercraft lift.
Okay. All right. With no public testimony, as discussed, rebuttal and no applicant or appellant, so we're fine there. I really don't have any questions. I'm glad you arrived with the 15-18-100 section B of the no objection letter on file. I assume Mr. Adams will attach that so that it's in the record permanently, and it'll also apply because we have the letter for approval from the other neighbor, as we'll hit in the next one. So that's fantastic. Any questions from any other port wardens?
I have none.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Mr. Anderson, you good? I did.
I'm good.
Okay,
I'm good.
fantastic. Thank you very much. All right. After all questions seem to be asked, thank you. I declare the public hearing on Port 2024-00021, Brendan Keating, 23 Eastern Avenue. Let's go ahead. As far as the code, like I said, the first thing I saw before I saw the letter was the proximity, but then I noticed it was perfectly sandwiched and you both had the letters. And I love when people actually use this particular rule because it means neighbors are working well together. So that is fantastic for our city. Everything else code-wise looks appropriate. You know, the harbor line, the setbacks where appropriate. You're obviously mitigating the middle setback and dealt with. But construction, everything sort of seems to be on par. I know Carrie likes when I use specific sections, but it's they're all in there. You're not obstructing any city waters. Everything seems to be perfect to with this. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny the application report 2024-00021 Brendan Keating, 23 Eastern Avenue. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
All right, Mr. Rakop, thank you very much. Can I get a second? All right, Mr. Siegel, thank you very much. All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve the application in Port 2024-00021, Brandon Keating, 23 Eastern Avenue. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, I believe that's unanimous.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much. The motion passes. All right, let's move on to the next one. And Mrs. Norris, you might as well just stay right there. Let me open it though, because like I said, I like looking at it. So the next one is the Port 2024-00022, Brian Sweetie, 25.5 Eastern Avenue. Let's go ahead. You're here, so we don't need anyone planning to testify. You don't need to raise your hand. Let's move to you. As a preliminary matter, the board will accept into record the application packet, the staff report, and any public comments with the city staff to the board. Mr. Adams, like to present any additional information about the staff report.
This one again has a letter of no objection, and there is no public testimony.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead if Mrs. Norris can sort of present it's going to be repetitive, but go ahead and present the application. That'd be great.
Okay. So yes, I represent Brian Sweeney, who resides at 25.5 Eastern Avenue. I submitted the building permit applications to the City of Annapolis and Maryland Department of the Environment. The certified letters were mailed November 14th. The signs were posted November 13th. And we received a letter of no objection from Brendan Keating at 23 Eastern Avenue. The proposed construction is to remove the existing pier and platform, to install a 6-foot by 35-foot pier, 12-foot by 15-foot platform, and 3-foot by 10-foot finger pier, and to install 2 lift piles and a 10-foot by 11-foot boat lift. So the difference is the pier will be moved to the west about 5 feet. The platform will increase from what's currently 177 square feet to 180 square feet. The finger pier is moved to the opposite side of the platform so that the new boat lift could be installed on the east side of the pier. And what was originally permitted was a cantilever lift, but now the new proposed boat lift will have 2 lift piles, and it's a Magnum CBX 10,000 pound lift. So that's the difference between what's originally permitted and what we're asking for now.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. No public testimony, I believe. Rebuttal is not necessary. I really don't have any questions. I actually love the fact that it's now going to be pilings, because then there's no risk for protruding, like having a boat too beamy to protrude into the actual lateral line. So that's almost better than leaving it just free and open, because if it were a something, I guess, over 11 foot beam, it could be potentially, but I think it works perfectly. Again, I think it's great that they're working together. Are there any other questions from Port Wardens related to this? All right, it doesn't appear there are. I declare a public hearing on Port 2024-00022, Brian Sweeney, 25.5 Eastern Avenue. The code, as discussed before, your setbacks are fine on each respective other side, and of course you're overcoming and working together as neighbors. And with 1518-100B, we have letters for each saying, yes, we're going to allow the no objection to the setback alteration. And everything else, again, build construction, the placements of 1516-020. I mean, everything sort of fits in as far as the various statutory considerations we're supposed to be dealing with in Title 15. So I'm sorry, I'm rattling on. I guess I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny the application in Port 2024-00023. I'm sorry, Port 2024-00022, Brian Sweeney, 25.5 Eastern Avenue. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
All right, thank you, Mr. Siegel. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
All right, Mr. Anderson, thank you very much. All right, all those in favor to approve the motion in the application Port 2024-00022, Brian Sweeney, 25 Eastern Avenue, please state aye or yes. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. The motion passes. Thank you very much, Mrs. Norris.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, you as well. All right, so the next item on the agenda is Port 2024-00023, John Tyler, and it's 144 Spa. Let me go ahead and open that up for 1 second so I can look at it. All right, so permit drawings. All right, so if I can have the tech bring anyone planning on, or any parties that relate to this matter. Anyone planning to testify, please raise your right hand. All right, you do solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give to the Port Wardens is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you very much. As a preliminary, the board will accept into record the application packet and the staff report for any public comments. Would the city staff board member, staff to the board, Mr. Adams, like to present any additional information about this application?
I will just say that this project has been approved by the Port Wardens in the past. It's just been quite a few years, so we did want to have it run through again, and there was no public testimony received.
Okay, fantastic. All right, Mr. Taylor, I assume you're going to be presenting. Is there any particular qualifications that are relevant to this application?
No, well, I'm the homeowner, and I've prepared permit requests 6 years ago, and again 13, 14 years ago, and managed the dredging on both those occasions.
Okay.
The area and depth of the dredging is entirely within the state license issued in 2019, which is actually still active.
Okay, great.
We've applied. We applied through the state for a new federal permit from the Corps of Engineers. But everything is absolutely a subset of what the Port Wardens approved 6 years ago. I can go into more detail if you would like.
No, I mean, it's well laid out to me, although there might be questions from other Port Wardens when we get to that phase. Again, we're working with a an already approved one. It sounds like you're in motion. How far are you away from the federal permits? Have they given you?
Yes, they've indicated they expect to issue before the end of the year.
Okay. All right. So it's coming up quickly. All right. Let's, do you have any more to add to this at this phase, or should I pass it down to?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I meant to mention we put the signs up on the 13th of November. And we mailed letters to 8 neighbors
Okay.
on the 9th of November.
Okay.
And received no replies.
Okay. Fantastic. I guess there's no public testimony who's joined this. We already said that, Mr. Adams. The rebuttal we're not worried about. I really don't have many questions. Again, it's well laid out as to what's occurring, and you do a good job of describing, where the dredging is going to occur. It sounds like you've got all the permits in motion and the state one already approved. So, any other port wardens have any questions?
Where does the dredging material end up?
So we originally were planning to have it sent to RB Baker in Queenstown, the same as we did 6 years ago. But we were informed by our Deason and June that they were no longer accepting, temporarily no longer accepting spoil. And so I'm sorry, they are now using another spoil site on the eastern shore, and I can dig that out if you just give me one moment. I'm sorry. I apologize. I should have had this ready.
It is in writing on the application that work's conducted, and that it will go to approve disposal site. I sort of trust both the state and the federal to verify.
Right. Actually,
that.
it's dependable sand and gravel.
Okay.
On the eastern shore.
All right. Are there any other questions? Harold? No? Okay. All right. I assume all questions have been asked. Let's go ahead. I'm going to declare the public hearing on Port 2024-0002 24. I'm sorry, 23. John Taylor, 144 Spa Drive. This, as far as the code is concerned, we're really on the it's sort of it's not as much a setback situation and or harbor line issue, and I would think it sort of falls under a combination of 15, 16, 20, which it looks like it's well within, and it's undertaken in a manner sufficiently substantial and lasting, 15, 16, 20. So as far as our statutory obligations, I think it's well within our responsibility. I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny the application in Port 2024-00023. Mr. Taylor, 144 Spa Drive.
Motion to approve.
All right. All those in, can I get a second? I'm sorry. All right, Mr. Anderson, thanks. And Mr. Rakat was the first on that one. Thank you. All right, all those in favor to the motion to approve the application Port 2024-00023, John Taylor, 144 Spa Drive, please say aye or yes. Aye. All right, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. The motion passes. Let's go ahead and leave Mr. Taylor on here because he was the gentleman who assisted Mrs. Rothenhouse in putting it together. Are we having anyone else present? So the next item on the agenda is Port 2024-00025, Heidi Rothenhouse, 198 Acton Place. And it's the dredge on either side of the dock. spur to main channel and main channel to dock and property line to the north. Area dredging is 1,992 square feet. Volume is 90 cubic yards. Anyone planning? We don't need to do the swear in, Mr. Taylor. Am I correct that you are presenting? Right. All right. Thank you very much. As a preliminary matter, the board will accept into record the application packet, the staff report, and any public comments. With the city staff to the board, Mr. Adams, like to present any additional information about the written staff report or any public comments.
Again, this is previously approved and within that state permit, and we have no public testimony. So
okay, fantastic. All right, if you, Mr. Taylor, can I turn this over to you and present the application?
So this is actually exactly analogous to my application for 144 Spa Drive. We were both part of a very large permit in 2019. And again, Heidi Rothenhaus is proposing to dredge entirely within the area and within the control depths established in the previous permits, in the current state permit and in the previous Port Wardens permit. Okay. She mailed the letters to, I believe, 12 neighbors on the 13th, and she put the signs up on the 16th on her property.
Okay. All right. It's pretty straightforward and similar to obviously the last one. There's no public testimony and no rebuttal, no issue. I really don't have any questions. I mean, I assume you're at the same phase with the federal permit, just waiting, and that should be coming through. And I'm assuming yes, the spoils are going to the same location you had mentioned prior.
Yes, they will be.
Yeah,
it'll be the same dredger and the same spoil site.
That makes sense. All right. Do any of the other port wardens have any questions? Okay. Seeing there are none, I declare the public hearing on Port 2024-00025, Heidi Rothenhaus, 198 Acton Road. Again, this is the same exact criteria and code. It's it sort of fits under 151620 and 5620, both the segment about it's not a navigation issue. As a matter of fact, it improves navigation probably to a certain extent, and it's substantial and lasting. It's well within the statutory considerations of what our responsibility is. I guess I will entertain a motion to approve or deny Port 2024-00025, Heidi Rothenhaus, 198 Acton Road. Can I get a motion? Mr. McCobb, thanks. Can I get a second? Mr. Anderson? All right, thank you very much. All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve, all those in favor to approve the motion and application Port 2020, last of the items, at least the new items, and it's Port 2024-00024, Olga Dominguez, I'm sorry if I mispronounced, 32 William Drive, and it's to construct a 38-foot long low-profile stone sand containment structure and fill and grade 20 cubic yards sand along 57-foot eroding, plan 400 square feet of low marsh and 50 square feet of high vegetation, and then install a 63-foot linear foot of stone armor. Let's go ahead. I guess, Mr. Snyder, you're presenting this one, I'm assuming?
Certainly.
Okay, yep. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and have you raise your right arm. You do solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give to the Port Wardens is the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, fantastic. Thanks. And I know your qualifications, but if you could just very briefly give us qualifications and the relevance to this particular application, and then present the application. Be great.
Certainly. My name is Chris Snyder. I'm with Waterfront Engineering Design. We're an engineering firm out of Pasadena. We've been in business for over 30 years, designing shoreline erosion control, marinas, piers, anything on the water. regards to this project, I'm here on behalf of Olga Dominguez at 32 Williams Drive. The purpose of this project is to stabilize the erosion occurring at the toe of the slope and enhance the subject property through means of natural shoreline stabilization. As part of this application, we have received letters of support from both the adjacent neighbors. We have also received authorization from the Maryland Department of the Environment under 24-GL-0856. Certified mail was sent out to the neighbors on November 14th, 2024, and the signs were posted on November 14th, 2024.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. Any, just want to confirm, I'm sorry, did I get Brian? I skipped over Brian for that, so I pardon it. It's a preliminary matter. The board will accept into record the application packet and staff report and any public comments. Would the city staff to the board, Mr. Adams, like to present any additional information about the written staff report?
No, I really have nothing to add. The only public testimony we received was the letters of support from the neighbors that I sent out earlier today.
Okay, I saw that in both sides, which is great. And again, I apologize, I skipped over that. And I assume there's no public testimony, which is fantastic. Rebuttal, no need for that. There's no in there. I really don't have any question. I think it's great that the neighbors are working together. Out of just sheer curiosity, what is that drain pipe coming from? It looks like a pretty big drain pipe from the road up the hill. That's Hillsmere, right?
Or
Admiral Heights, sorry.
Yes, Admiral Heights.
Yeah.
That essentially, from what we understand, is actually coming from the neighbor's property.
Okay.
On 34 Williams Drive, and it's not part of this application. You'll actually see this come across in the next couple of months. But we're actually working with Lee Sung and his wife Iona at 34 Williams Drive. We're actually going to expand this living shoreline into that other portion of the cove as well, Williams Creek. Okay. So that whole corner, we're going to enhance that whole corner.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. All right. I really don't have any additional questions. Port Wardens, are there any questions?
No.
Okay. All right. Looks like no questions, so I declare the public hearing for 2024-00024, Olga Dominguez, 32 Williams Drive. The codes, the section 1516.030, the effective proposed structure alone, concert with the president, proposed use of marine life, wildlife conservation, water pollution, erosion, navigation. So it's well within, again, much like some of the prior to, well within their sort of obligation. I mean, it looks like, the appropriate erection of it's not an erection really of construction, but it's really these barriers that are part of the shoreline, which looks like they're done appropriately. So I will entertain a motion to approve or deny the application in Port 2024-00024, Olga Dominguez, 32 William Drive. Can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, Mr. Anderson, look, everyone's all psyched. Can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. Bacop, thanks. All right, all those in favor, please say aye or yes.
Aye.
Aye, yes. All right, that's unanimous, all four. Motion passes. Thank you very much. There is one, let's go ahead, just Miss Laney, before we get to, there is one slight alteration. I realized that it was on the agenda, but it's minor, and we're all going to make it on our checks for the next 2 months. Is there anything for the good of the order? All right. So this is the adjustment. So it had said 2024, and I'm surprised I catch it because I'm the guy who writes the year prior for like the first 3 months on every check. So it's the next regular meeting will be January 28th, 2025. All right, there being no other items on the agenda, and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, Mr. McCobb, great. Can I get a second? All right, Mr. Siegel, thank you very much. All right, all those in favor of adjourn, please say aye or yes.
Right.
Aye. All right, that is unanimous. Hearing no opposition.